Welcome to Ideashal on part 4 of SQL video series. This is Ganesh. In our previous video, we have discussed on how to install Microsoft SQL Server. In this video, we are going to discuss about database operations, which means how we can create a database and how we can select the created database and how we can rename the database, and finally, how we can drop the database. I'm connecting to SQL Server. When I expand these databases, I'm seeing system databases, which is one type of database. When I expand system databases, I'm seeing master, model, MSDB, tempdb. These are all the system databases provided by SQL Server. And these databases are useful for SQL Server to perform its operations. We are not going to discuss much on the system databases as its purpose is for SQL Server, but we are going to discuss about the second type, which is user databases. The main purpose of having the user database is for storing and retrieving the data. How we can store the data? Once the database is created, we can create tables to store the data. Once the data is present in tables, we can use our logics to retrieve the data. In addition to tables, we can create views, stored procedures, triggers, cursors, etc., which we will be discussing in the separate video series on PL/SQL or t-sql. First, let's create a user database. To do that, I'm opening a new query window with this option. Let me pin this worksheet so that this will be fixed and this will be helpful when you are working on multiple worksheets in parallel. To create a database, this is the syntax. If I follow the syntax, I can write in this way: create database and database name. Database name I'm giving as iShell and semicolon. Semicolon is optional. You can execute with or without semicolon. If you are executing only one statement, you don't need to bother about semicolon. Whereas if you are executing multiple statements, you need to ensure you keep the semicolon so that the SQL Server will understand these are all two different statements. Let's execute this query. I'm selecting this and clicking this execute button. It says commands completed successfully. I have executed the statement, but still we are not able to see iShell database created in it. Actually, SQL Server would have already created, but it is just not displaying it here. In order to see that, we need to select that server and refresh it. So now we are seeing iShell database created in it. This is how we need to create a database. I'm expanding this iShell database. So I'm seeing some folder structures like tables, views, etc. When we create any objects like tables, views, synonyms, or any stored procedures, those objects will go under the corresponding nodes. If I expand all the nodes, I do not see any information on it. So these are all just blank folder structures. The moment we create objects, it will go under the corresponding nodes. This is one way of creating the database. Alternatively, we can select this one and right click and click new database. We can enter database name. Let's say I'm entering iShell 1 and with the default options I am clicking OK. Now I could see iShell 1 has been created. If you notice, now we haven't did any refresh, but we are able to see it automatically. This is because as we are doing from SQL Server Management Studio, it automatically refreshes the window. That's why we are seeing it here immediately. This is all about on how to create a database. Now let's see how to rename a database. By using this syntax, I can write a query like this. So alter database name. So I want to rename iShell1 and I want to modify it. What I need to modify? It's the name I need to modify. And to what I need to modify? I want to change it as iShell new. Let's run this. I'm selecting it and executing it. The database name iShell new has been set. Okay, let's refresh and see if it is reflecting or not. So I'm selecting the database name and hit refresh. It's not working. Let me select a database and hit refresh. Yeah, now it is reflecting. So if you could see that iShell 1 it was before, now it has changed to iShell new. Now let's see the select database. Select database is used to tell SQL Server on what database you need to execute these queries. If you see here, this is mentioned as master, and if I click this drop down, so it is listing all the databases which are available. So what it tells is whatever the queries we write here and execute it, it will point by default to the database selected over here. So in this case, all our queries we have executed so far hit the database master and executed in the master database. But in real-time scenarios, we will execute statements mostly in the user databases. In this case, iShell and iShell new are the user databases. So we will be working mostly on the user databases. So to point the worksheet to user database, let's say iShell, I can select this drop down and click this iShell. So now whatever the queries, let's say I am writing a query to create one table. So if I write that query over here and execute it, it will point the iShell database and it will create a table under it. So instead of doing this from UI, how we can write using the SQL query is use database name. So in this case, iShell we have selected currently. So I am changing it to iShell new. So to do that, I will execute this statement. Okay, commands completed successfully. And if you could see, it has changed to iShell new. So whatever the commands executed after this use iShell new will point to the iShell new database by default. Now let's see how to delete a database. To delete a database, this is the syntax. And if I follow it, I can write the query in this way. So drop database, the database name. So I want to delete or drop this database. Let me execute it. So I have selected this and executing. Okay, cannot drop database iShell new because it is currently in use. So it says we cannot drop a database when it is in use, which means we are trying to drop the database by being in the iShell new database. It is like, we are trying to delete the database by executing the query in the same database. Like we cannot perform this operation. So to do that, we can switch to master. Now let's execute this. We are getting the commands completed successfully. And in all these cases, if you would have noticed, the syntax is not exactly the same which we followed. As SQL is a case insensitive language, as I said before, you can write in all lowercase, or you can write in all uppercase, or you can even write in mixed cases. Alright, we have covered all the database operations. If you find this video useful, I suggest you to share with your friends and colleagues. And that's the end of the video. Thank you.